What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Dynasty. We are on episode 17 now. Can you believe we've done this for over 17 weeks, man? Really grateful for you guys being here today. Seriously, we just passed 300 and something subscribers on YouTube, so I really appreciate all of you guys. Just passed 100K on YouTube, I think 110K actually. So you guys have been killing it. You guys are all part of the journey, and we really do appreciate each and every one of you guys that watch the channel. So thank you for that. I do see we got some comments here. My boy Caleb, what up, man? He says we in here. We just did a video on his channel last week, so if you haven't gone and watched that, go watch that right now, because we did a mock draft on his channel. So without further ado, let me tell you guys what we are doing today. We are going to be doing a video about make or break Dynasty fantasy football players, and we are going to be taking a trip to the Last Chance Saloon. These make or break players, man. These are guys that the name's in the title, man. It's a make or break season for them. We need to see something happen before their value either plummets completely, or whoever War and I nominate, we're just out on them completely and won't roster them anymore, at cost, of course. So with that being said, let me bring War in here, aka MFGDs, and let's talk some Dynasty fantasy football, man. War, how are you? It's the typical
Same thing every week.
Oh my gosh, man. What's up?
Hi guys. Yeah, guys, I'm here dealing with a janky setup. I'm in the process of moving, so it's all dark behind me. I'm holding the mic like I'm doing an interview, and yeah, I'm ready to get rock and roll. I'm very excited for this episode. This is going to be some real good stuff.
This is going to be a fun one. And there's a couple hot takes in here, I'm not going to lie. So it's going to be fun to get into. We've been planning it for a week. I've been out traveling. You're moving, but we're still making it happen. So yeah. I do want to say before we get into the video, one last little promo thing for you guys. Make sure that you go enter our Discord. It is free to join. If you enter the Discord and you are subscribed to the channel, you will be entered to win a free signed NFL jersey mystery box. That giveaway is over next month, so you have about 30 days left, guys. Go enter the Discord and enter to win that free NFL signed jersey mystery box. Now, with all of this being said, War, let's take a trip down to the Last Chance Saloon. I have a little monologue for you, so we'll get after it, and then we'll get right into our first players. So without further ado, let's take this journey. Now, as you guys know, it's been a little while since we got on the podcast. But in that time, War and I, we've hopped on the horses, we've taken a ride through the desert, and we've come across this old western town. Now, obviously, we've been out there for a few days. It's been about a week since our last episode. So as you can imagine, we are very thirsty. So we're going down Main Street on our horses, and we come across the Last Chance Saloon. Now, as we approach the doors, we notice there's a sign right next to those swinging doors, and it says, "Outsiders Welcome." So obviously we look at each other and we say, man, this is good news. We're outsiders. We're not from here. So let's walk right into these doors. Let's go sit down at the bar and let's get a drink. Now, as we walk in these doors, we very quickly notice that this is outsiders only. There is a bunch of misfits around this town. And we notice there's your sheriff, the league commissioners, your outlaws, the guys that try to rob you in the trade room, and they're out here just causing mayhem. And then, of course, we have the outcasts. Now, we ran into 8 outcasts in this saloon, 2 of them from each positional group. Now, I talked to 4 while I was in the saloon, and War talked to 4 himself. So we can't tell you what happened at this saloon, but we can tell you who we ran into. So without further ado, let's start the story. I ran into Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, currently being valued as quarterback 10 on Underdog Fantasy as the 13th to 14th pick off the board. He's going very high. Now, I think that Tua is in a make or break season because of a few things. Obviously, there are concerns with Tua Tagovailoa. There is concussion concerns. Let me read you the list, War, of all of these. Let me get out of my monologue and get into fantasy analyst mode now. I will read you the list of all of these, man. We have concussion, week 16, ankle sprain, concussion, back strain, finger fracture, rib fracture, left thumb sprain. The list goes on and on for Tua. Health has never been on his side. But what we do know is that last year, when healthy, Tua did take a little bit of that step forward. As far as performance, he was 9th in fantasy points per game. That would be the highest of his career. Had 3,500 passing yards on 400 attempts, both of those career highs as well. And then he threw 25 touchdowns, another career high for Tua Tagovailoa. My thing here is I think this is kind of my last chance on Tua, and not necessarily because of performance. I think when he's on the field, it's good. I mean, he's not going to be one of these top 5 quarterbacks for you on your Dynasty fantasy football rosters, but he should be viewed as a very, very good QB2 on your Superflex teams, or at worst, he's a low-end QB1 for you. But I just think I'm at a point with Tua, man, where if the concussions come in this year, if he has concussions, that's scary, because we know that there was rumors of him pondering retirement or maybe not playing or doing something like that this offseason. With Tua, I want to see him be healthy. When he's on the field, he's good. He has 2 fantastic wide receivers next to him, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But I'm just at a point where, like, if I see this again, man, I think I'm too scared to keep holding. I think I'm too scared where I just want to get rid of him if I keep seeing some of this stuff happen. So I want to know your thoughts. How do you feel about Tua? Do you think he belonged here at the saloon?
Let's go ahead and pour Tua another drink. And I'm sorry to say that if he gets injured seriously again this year, I'll be taking that drink from Tua, and I'm going to start pouring it out for the dead homies, because Tua, this is definitely his last chance. The Dolphins have already flirted with the idea of getting this guy out of town and replacing him, finding something bigger, better, newer. But I'm afraid to say, man, Honestly, I'll be honest. I have one share of Tua amongst all the leagues I have, and I would definitely part with him if I get the right offer. Two first rounders or something like that would definitely get Tua off of my team. I think when he plays and when he's healthy, he'll give us what he's given us last season with the amazing numbers, passing to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. But he's one injury away from me being done with him,
Yeah, and
completely done.
I'm the same, man. In all of my leagues, I have 1 to a share, and, this offseason, I have tried multiple times to put him in a first round pick or him in a good player to upgrade and get a little bit safer of a guy. And unfortunately, I think for most people as well, everybody has the same worries. We're all worried about Tua. But we've seen, I mean, last year, top 9 in fantasy points per game. Like, he was putting up QB1 numbers when he was healthy. He doesn't have any rushing upside. He doesn't have, um, the ceiling isn't just like super high, but I feel like the floor when he plays is pretty high because of the guys he's throwing the football to and because he's a very accurate quarterback. So, um, he's scary, man. And to me, that's why I think I had to run into him in this saloon because I think it's just he's a little too risky. He's a little too. There's not enough commitment from Miami. I mean, they didn't wanna give him a contract extension. Like, they picked up an option, right? If I'm not mistaken, they picked up the fifth-year option, um, and said, "We're gonna ride with this and see what happens," and that's never a good sign. I think when a team after your rookie contract doesn't want to extend you, usually when a team likes you and they see you as the future, as soon as that contract comes up, they give you some money because it's cheaper to do it now than a year from now.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's just not a good sign for me, man. I think Tua is a little bit of a uh, outlaw here in this town, and if he has another injury, it may not be big enough for the both of us, man. So I am definitely gonna say that he's a make or break player for me, and I'm not willing to risk it too much longer on Tua Tagovailoa. But if he has a good year, I'm back in, man. I'm completely sold. I'm still holding on to that roster spot with him, so we'll see how it goes with him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were walking around in this saloon and you ran into one of these guys too, and I was surprised that you ran into one of your friends here because you ran into Justin Fields, quarterback of the Chicago Bears, and he's coming off the board as QB6 in underdog drafts. So tell me why Justin Fields is hanging out at the Last Chance Saloon.
Well, I seen him sitting at the end of the bar, and I walked up to him. I said, "Justin, what the hell are you doing here? You were about to break Michael Vick's record last season." And then Justin turned around to me and he said, "MFGDs, it's as simple as I need to become a better passer." And I looked at him and I said, "Why? Fantasy wise, you're putting up amazing numbers." And he said, "I know, no doubt. But needless to say, fantasy and real life are two different things. And I'm afraid that if I don't perform well, you may have to have a new friend in the Windy City." And I said, "All right, it's simple as this." And I'm going to put this pretty bluntly. If Justin Fields fails, okay, first let me put the context around it. Let's say, for instance, by some chance, the Bears only improve 2 games and they get 5 wins instead of 3. That'll be enough for Justin Fields to lose his job in Chicago. Sure, sure, sure. He'll get another chance on another team. But will that translate? We know the real life and fantasy are two different things. These teams don't care about what a player does in fantasy. So just to have all the upside in the world to us. But in real life, if he loses his job and they determine that he's a shitty passer and he can't get any better in that direction, then he'll be just one of those guys that they try to turn into something else. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I think Chicago will be his, I won't say only chance because he'll get signed by somebody else, but it's his best chance to become that star that we know he could become in fantasy football. Yeah, he put up numbers last season, but imagine if Justin was even slightly above average in passing. We're talking about what, Andrew? What do you think? Well, we're talking about he was number 7 as is. We're talking about what, like top 4 fantasy quarterback if he's an above average passer with the rushing upside.
Yep.
And that's why I said he'll never have once the stink of this team replaced you with another quarterback gets on Justin in real life, it'll tarnish him going forward. He'll be a reclamation project for another team. He'll put up some good numbers running, and pretty much simple as this, Justin needs to be show what he showed Ohio State this season. This is his last chance to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, just 2 years into the league now, going into year 3, it feels like, year 3 and year 4, usually if you haven't really shown it, those are like very, very critical years, is that 3 and 4, because at this point, that's when teams are kind of looking at like, okay, in a year or 2 from now, we kind of have to make a financial commitment to this guy, or we have to choose not to. And it's looking like it's getting close to that time for Justin Fields. I mean, this time next year, they'll be having to pick up an option and potentially looking at giving him an extension. He'll be eligible for an extension at this time next year. So that's something that, we need to consider. I'm looking at the last 2 years, man. 2021 is rookie season, 31st in fantasy points per game, 11 points per game there from I'm getting all of my information off of player profile. So I don't know whether they do 6-point passing or whatever, but this is what they have: 31st in fantasy points per game. And then last year, 5th in fantasy points per game. Now you look at it and you say, okay, so where did we improve? Completion percentage only went up about a 1.5%. Passing attempts only went up about 40 or 50 attempts. And the passing yards went up by about 350, 400 yards. And where most of the improvement was an extra 750 rushing yards on the ground.
On the
Now,
ground.
that's the thing, man, right? Like, you guys just added DJ Moore. You made it a point of emphasis to go trade for an established veteran wide receiver who I think is a good wide receiver. And you're trying to do what we've seen done a couple times over the last couple years, where Josh Allen gets Stephon Diggs, Jalen Hurts gets AJ Brown, and now we get to see if that experiment continues with Justin Fields adding DJ Moore. I think you're being a little critical on Justin. I don't know if I would have ran into him at the saloon yet, but I
It's
do
coming
think
from a good place.
I
It's
do
coming from a
think
good
that there
place.
is there's truth to what you're saying, man. And all reports say that he has improved this offseason. Obviously, we won't know until September when he starts playing some football games. But I think I think you're right. We're getting at least close to that make or break time with Justin. But I think if I had to pick one way or the other, I think he's gonna ball out this year, man. I really do think he will.
And I do too. I do too, and I have a bias interest in it. But we have to look at it like this: they added weapons. Yeah, they added weapons to build around Justin Fields, but they also added the weapons to determine if he's the problem. So we
Yep.
just have to put that out there. And I mean, it'll be nothing for him to struggle, the entire team to struggle, and for the team to be like, hey, you know what? Let's get in the Caleb sweepstakes. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, hey, if Bryce Young isn't that great, they might be in the sweepstakes anyway. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. The good news so far for Justin though is couple injuries here and there, but nothing crazy. I mean, just some shoulder strains, hip strains, like nothing crazy, man. We don't need to worry about any injuries so far, but you keep running him like that, they do become a little bit more they do happen a little bit more often. So we do want to see him develop as a passer. 24 years old, man. 11th pick in the 2021 draft. I think the ceiling is still very, very, very high for Justin Fields. And I will say, of all the guys we're going to talk about today, like, I really do think that Justin Fields is the only one that we're going to talk about today that has the potential to finish as the number one player at his position. There is a world, I think, where Justin Fields is QB1 this year. So we'll see.
I agree.
But I'm not going to sit here and talk about the Bears much longer. So I'm going to go over and tell you a little bit, because I went to the restroom, right? I sat down, I got a drink. I saw you talking and chopping it up with Justin, and I decided I need to go to the bathroom. So I go outside, and obviously we're Wild West, so there's no urinals or nothing. So I'm out here peeing in the bushes. And as I get out there, somebody was walking in. He just took a leak too. So I ran into DeAndre Swift, new running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's being drafted as running back 23 on Underdog right now. And let's just get straight to the point, man. I mean, there's one thing about DeAndre Swift that continues to be something we talk about, and it is health. Just like I said with Tua, man, DeAndre Swift, misses 3 games in 2022, 4 games in 2021, 3 games in 2020, shoulder strain, ankle sprain, AC joint sprain, groin strain, concussion, hip injuries. Like, there's a lot of stuff that DeAndre Swift continues to injure over and over again, and he has never played a full year. And the thing is, when he does play, he's been pretty solid. I won't say, I know there's a lot of guys that are really on DeAndre Swift, or were on. I don't know how many people have hopped off the bandwagon, but I think he was overhyped at one point, because when we look across his career, 14.6 fantasy points per game as a rookie. That was good for 15th overall from a fantasy points per game metric. Improved that in year 2 to go to 16.1, which was good for 8th overall. And then last year, 13.7, which was good for 15th overall. So what that tells me right now is that when healthy, DeAndre Swift has been a low-end RB1, high-end RB2. That's kind of been what he has, or what he has been. And I think we're kind of at this point where it's going to be last chance or make or break season for DeAndre Swift, because clearly it was enough that the Lions said he's worth giving up. And they decided that they were going to ship him out. Now, luckily, he gets to go play for a team that has one of the best offensive lines in football. Now, you could argue Detroit also has one of the best lines in football, but he gets to go play with them. Now, my question is, and something that I am really going to be paying attention to this year, is we know a lot of the versatility of DeAndre Swift is his ability to be an elite pass catcher and to be very explosive in the passing game. Now, when you have a quarterback like Jared Goff, that's great, because he will check down to you all day long, and you will be the outlet for him. But when you go and you play with a guy like Jalen Hurts, who doesn't have to check down, he has the arm to get it anywhere he wants on the field. He also has the ability to tuck it and go. And that's something that Jared Goff doesn't have. So my worry is that we see a dip in passing production, but maybe we see a little bit more efficiency in the run game. But as history shows, when we start giving him a lot of carries in between the tackles, the body doesn't hold up. And I'm afraid that, if you go to a second team, same thing happens. You get some injuries, you miss some football games, and now you're going to test the open market. Nobody's paying you. You're a running back, and you've dealt with injuries. Nobody is paying you to come be a bona fide starting RB1, no questions asked player. They may bring you in to compete for an RB1 job. They may even bring you in as the lead back, but they're probably going to bring in a guy who's going to split that workload with you about 40%. And I'm also worried a little bit about the fact that Rashad Penny was signed and was brought in here, and he kind of, durability is the same issue with Rashad Penny, but he's very good between the tackles. And could Rashad Penny potentially be a goal line back stealing touchdowns? Could he potentially be a first and second down guy? I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with this offense. And at the end of the day, I would argue that the financial or compensation commitment that they made to DeAndre Swift is very similar to what they made to Rashad Penny. I mean, they didn't give up anything to go get Swift, and they didn't pay Penny a lot of money. So I think this backfield is a little bit messy. I think Swift is the most talented in the backfield. I'll let that be known. But there's enough little red flags here and there that I think that if it doesn't work out here in Philly this year, it just may never work out for DeAndre.
Yeah, man. A lot of people have been Team DeAndre Swift for a long time, and whether it's poor coaching decisions or injuries, it just hasn't come all the way together for DeAndre Swift. So now he's going over to the Eagles where expectations are greater, the lights are brighter, and he's going to be expected to contribute more so than Miles Sanders. Then you got Rashad Penny right there behind him. I mean, the Eagles have shown no loyalty whatsoever since the beginning of time, since the days of Brian Westbrook. The Eagles have shown no loyalty towards running backs, either roster wise or production wise. And just that's just been how they operate historically. They still kind of operate the same way Andy Reid has put it into place in Philly and still does the same thing in KC. You can't rely on it. So now you put all those factors together, then you get a DeAndre in danger, DeAndre in danger. So, um, yeah, man, DeAndre, this is definitely his last chance. I mean, can you see him flopping in Philadelphia and being able to go somewhere else and to be counted upon as a lead back? I can't.
I can't. And I think it needs to be said too, man. Like, um, his career high in rushing yards, career high. We're going into year 4. This is the last year of the deal. Um, Career high is 617 rushing yards. It's just
Not good enough.
it just doesn't happen on the ground. It hasn't happened on the ground for DeAndre Swift. Now, like I said, the bread and butter has been he's almost put up 500 receiving yards. That second year where he was top 8 in points per game, he almost put up 500 receiving yards. So it's going to come down to how much do they get him involved in this receiving game, and quite honestly, I don't know if Jalen Hurts is the quarterback to do it.
No.
We just know that these rushing quarterbacks don't check down the football as often as these pocket passers, and we saw last year too, man. Like Miles Sanders did not get worked into the receiving game at all. Like there was really no receiving work. But the good thing for him is he was healthy, he was super efficient on the ground, and he scored some touchdowns. And so that's kind of what it's going to need to be in this offense. And DeAndre Swift doesn't profile as that. Like he just really doesn't. So if I was betting my make or break, I think it's gonna break, man. I just don't see Swift. I don't see it going well after this, man. I think if you have people in your leagues that think that this move to Philly is gonna, rejuvenate and reignite the DeAndre Swift flame, get out. I'd be getting out, man. I just don't think I would be holding him, especially if people are high with the move.
I agree. And I've seen the guy getting sold left and right. So, I mean, there must be a lot of people in on the secret of DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, we'll see. So, I will say you ran into somebody else too. You'll have to tell me how you met him because I didn't see you talking to him, but it was J.K. Dobbins, if I'm not mistaken, running back for the Baltimore Ravens. He's being drafted as RB18. But how did you meet him?
I actually bumped into him thinking that he was DeAndre Swift. I bumped into him, and then he turned around. I was like, DeAndre? He said, no, JK, just joking. I am Dobbins. So, I mean, so then I said, what's going on with you? How's the body holding up? He said, hey, I'm getting better every day. I know I wasn't what you wanted last season, but I promise I'm going to come back. And I said, what's that behind you? He said, oh, that's just Gus. He's always there. So, um, J.K. Dobbins, same story as DeAndre Swift. I will say, I feel like in terms of when healthy, he's probably a little more reliable. Maybe I don't know if I can say that's him or the system or the Baltimore Ravens system, but I can't see a scenario with J.K. Dobbins where he gets hurt again and he goes into next season. That's the running back. This has to be it. the Ravens change running backs like they change draws, like it's a new one every year. And him and Gus Edwards, like at this point, the Ravens have to be thinking about replacing these guys. It could be a guy like Keaton Mitchell or something like that coming in, taking the food right off of JK's plate. Um, if the guy can't stay healthy, if the guy's not what he was the season before last, I just don't see a future for J.K. Dobbins. And I'm not talking about in a sense like with the last pick, Justin Fields, at least there was like, okay, even if you don't get it all together this season, you'll still get another chance. With J.K., if he doesn't succeed this season, there will be no other chance. He's a running back. You are an endangered species. You do not get chances. Once you screw up your first chance, that's it. The only way to be a running back for years and years to come in the NFL is to be productive and to be available. And JK hasn't always been there in both aspects.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I'm looking at, the injury history here on Player Profile, man, and it's been unfortunate for J.K. Dobbins because I do think I agree with you here where you say he is highly efficient and he is very, very talented. The problem is 2021 ACL tear, 2022 ACL surgery rehabilitation, 2022 ACL surgery rehabilitation. Like the knee has taken damage, man. Like this guy, comes into the league in 2020 and he has 23 games under his belt and he's been in there for 3 seasons. Like he should be upwards of 45, 50 games at this point and he has 23. So, it just hasn't been good for J.K. Dobbins health wise, and it's unfortunate because it's not really been any. It hasn't really been like a long list of injuries. It's kind of just been the one ACL knee injury that's just been doing it over and over again. But as a rookie in 2020, 29th in fantasy points per game, obviously nothing special there. 11.2 points per game, and then last year in 2022, he plays 8 games. Because he was still recovering from the ACL from 2021's preseason. And a year and a half removed, he averages 10 points a game. So didn't even play in enough games to have a finish there. But we are now 2 years removed from the injury. And yeah, I mean, I totally agree that this is last chance for JK because you play a fragile position and you've proven to be fragile at this point. And not necessarily the smartest move in my opinion, but there's rumors of JK holding out because he wants to get a contract extension. And if I'm a general manager in the NFL and I'm looking at JK and saying, what the hell have you done since you've been here? Like you've been here for this. We're going into year 4. You've played 23 games. Your career high was as a rookie 3 years ago and it was 800 rushing yards. What the hell have you done to hold out and deserve a contract? We got Saquon talking about holding out, and that guy isn't even looking like he's going to get a contract right now, and he's done 15 times as much as you. So what are we talking about here, JK? Like, he definitely deserves to be at the saloon, man. He's probably been at this saloon for a while now. I'm not going to lie. He's probably slept a couple nights at this saloon. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with JK. The smartest decision for him is to not hold out. It's to go out and try and ball because if you ball, then they can, give you some money. But I think the reality, or they don't give you money and you hit the open market and maybe somebody gives you money. But I think the reality of it is I think J.K. Dobbins is, whether it sounds like it or not, he might be a great value Miles Sanders at this point.
Maybe not.
We'll see, man. It depends what he does this year. It's make or break.
We just need that health to be good. We just need that health, man.
It depends what he does this year, make or break. So, you were talking to him. Now I go outside and actually, I'm outside. I just finished handling my business, and I start hearing some yelling. And there's some yelling outside, and there's 2 guys out there. And I hear you kind of come through the doors because, what's the ruckus, right? This town ain't big enough for the both of us. There's two guys fighting right now, and I get one of them. I kind of get it. We were breaking it up, you and I pull this guy to the side. I start talking to him. The guy that I talk to is this one, DJ Moore, Chicago Bears. He's wide receiver 24 on Underdog Fantasy. Now, DJ said he was a little upset. He said the guy that he was fighting called him a bona fide wide receiver too. That's basically just what he called him. It was fighting words to DJ. He said for years and years he thinks that he's been a wide receiver one, and the reality is that this guy just called him a wide receiver too, and it kind of just poked the heartstrings. So I'm talking to DJ Moore, and I said, "Look, man, I've always believed in you. I always have, and unfortunately, what he said is kind of true. Up to this point, that's all you've shown." And so we have a little bit of a conversation. But all jokes aside, um, I look at DJ Moore's numbers, and going into his let's see, going into year 6 now, man. Like, it's year 6, and wide receiver 49, wide receiver 14, wide receiver 28, wide receiver 23, wide receiver 33, all from fantasy points per game. When you're on the field, you're fine. You just haven't ever stepped into that, oh yeah, he's a wide receiver one. Now the problem is he's always been valued as that, or there have been people who have valued him as this wide receiver one potential. But the reality is, like, he always puts up the numbers. He doesn't miss games. He's never injured. He puts up 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns every year. That's what he's been doing. And we could sit here and talk about, oh yeah, he's never really had a good quarterback. It's been a mix of Cam Newton, and then we had some Andy Dalton, and then we had some just a whole bunch of nobodies, PJ Walkers, and yeah, man, like, it's just been a mess. But he does get traded this offseason. We have already talked on it and touched on it a little bit. He goes to play with your boy Justin Fields. And the hope here is that it is the Stephon Diggs or the A.J. Brown move, where they've been a good wide receiver that goes and becomes a great wide receiver. That's the hope. Like I said with DJ, man, there hasn't been any injuries. There's nothing that we should ever be worried about as far as health goes. He's still young. For some reason, going into year 6, he's still 26. Like, this guy came into the league at 20 years old. He's still young, man. But I just need to see him. I need to see him. And this is me more selfishly. Now, I don't think, DJ Moore, if he goes out and puts up 1,104 again, like, it's not the end of his career. Definitely not. Like, teams will go pay for 1,104 from a wide receiver every year in the NFL. But for me, the guy who's been in on him for 5 years now, wanting him to be a wide receiver one, if he doesn't take that jump this year, I'm just going to have to come to terms with him being your average wide receiver. I'm just going to have to come to terms with it. And that's why, for me, this is my last chance with DJ Moore. I need to see it happen. And if he doesn't step up, man, I'm giving up. I've already started giving up a little bit. I've slimmed out my shares, very slim, up to this point, but I just need to see it happen.
Yes, you have slimmed up your shares. I'll be honest, and you know this, I've never been a DJ Moore guy. Now, once he got to the Bears, I was just like, okay, maybe we'll see. But even when I think about DJ, it's more or less his traits and how good they pair with Justin's. I feel like Justin to DJ is a good match, but in general, just like Brandon just said, he's trash. We've typically thought of DJ Moore as trash. That's just what it is. I have to believe in DJ Moore. 4 touchdowns, that's really shit. I'm not gonna lie to you. 4 touchdowns. I mean, guy has all the talent in the world. Like you said, if he doesn't become a wide receiver one this year, all hope is not lost for DJ. He'll still be a wide receiver 2. It just will be set in stone.
Yeah.
You're a wide receiver 2. You're Adam Thielen. You're TJ Houshmandzadeh. You're one of those. Even though it's not okay. Adam Thielen, that's not fair. I feel like Adam Thielen was
Adam Thielen gave some wide receiver 1 seasons.
Yeah, he was a 1B to me. But yeah, man, I agree with you 100% on where you stand with DJ, and the fact that you're giving up on him a little bit, that says a lot because there's been a lot of times where you're the only guy supporting DJ Moore.
Dude, and that's why it hurts. And there was a couple times where I was making trades where I'm like, man, this just I want to keep DJ because I want to believe that DJ's gonna be what I want him to be. But you know, we play Dynasty Fantasy Football, and newsflash, as much as we research, as much as we know, some of the things, we can't predict the future, man. And I think it stings because he's a guy that I really stamped my approval on. I really believed in,
Yeah,
and I think I was wrong. Up to this point, I've been wrong. Now, maybe this change is my chance to do a victory lap. But I'm fully aware that it is make or break for me, and this is DJ Moore's last chance for me, man. Like if he goes out again, 1104, it's what he is. It's just what he is. And I just want to read something from Matt Harmon, and because I love Matt Harmon's work. Matt Harmon does reception perception. He's one of the I'll call him one of the wide receiver gurus in the space, man. He came up with a model where you can see success rates, and he's picked out guys to be breakouts or superstars way before we talked about them, and he's been right a lot. And it's the model's good, but this is what he says about DJ Moore, man. And he used to love DJ Moore, but he gave up before I did. And he says the move to Chicago is at best lateral. I also think that he's tapped out. He's a good, not great wide receiver one, maybe wide receiver two. Good, not great. That's what Matt Harmon says. So, take that for what you will. I kind of am starting to believe that as well. And that's where I'm at with DJ Moore. But doesn't mean he's going to be bad for your fantasy football teams, guys. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I just think any hope of him being a wide receiver one, if he doesn't do it this year, it's never happening. It never will happen if he doesn't do it this year, unless he goes and plays with Mahomes. But that would have to be like a crazy change of pace for DJ Moore. But that's where I'm at. Do you have any other thoughts or comments here about DJ?
DJ, play that song again.
Fair enough. Well, like I said, DJ was fighting this guy who called him a wide receiver too, and you went over and you grabbed this guy. DJ was yelling in my face. I don't know what he said to you, but you'll have to tell me what Jameson Williams, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, was talking to you about. He's being drafted as wide receiver 49 on Underdog.
Yeah, I put J-Mo aside and I was like, what the hell is that all about? And he said, I don't know, and I quote, he said, I don't know what's with this guy. He says I owe him money from a gambling bet that we made. And I said, what he said Bears versus Lions. So somehow the fight broke out over there. Jameson is very young, so I'm not going to be too tough on Jameson, but I will say coming into the NFL with a significant injury and following that up with a suspension does not curry a lot of favor, not only amongst the league, but fans and fantasy football players alike. Um, as someone who drafted JMO, well, no, I didn't draft JMO. I traded for JMO before the season started, the year he was drafted. As someone who's been waiting for him, I'm very disheartened that he went ahead and got a 6-game suspension to start off a year on a team where he was supposed to supplant Amon-Ra St. Brown as the wide receiver one and either relegate St. Brown to being a 1B or a 2. And now he's not there to do that. And now we're supposed to think that he's going to come back mid-season and do that. Like, I think the kid is one mistake away from being just another guy. I mean, some players have all the talent in the world and become a victim of their dumb decisions. I mean, he's not going to be on the same page with the team. And I mean, he's on the verge of becoming a reclamation project for not only the Lions, but for people who drafted him.
Yeah.
I mean, Same thing, and I hate to bring another player into this because he wasn't last chance, but if I had to make a choice to, I know you only had a graphic for Jameson, but I'm gonna put this guy here for the same reason. Calvin Ridley, he wasn't in the bar, he wasn't in the saloon, but Jameson told me that he got he got his ticket from Calvin Ridley, and I said, why would you listen to another guy that's on his last chance? These guys are missing all these games and they're just expected to come back and just produce at a high level. And I mean, how many more games can Jameis not? This is the NFL. How many more games can this kid miss? I mean, if he comes in and he looks like trash, now the fans are piling on him. Now he's in his head. So I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this Jameson Williams thing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna try and be very, I'm gonna try and not be as negative as I probably want to be because I'm not very big on JMO. But I am gonna point out a couple facts and a couple things that I think people really need to pay attention to, because like you said, a lot of people drafted him and kind of thought that he was gonna be the guy who dethrones Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think the more and more that we sit here and watch Amon-Ra just excel for the Lions, the more and more I'm like, hey, this guy is the wide receiver one, and JMO's here to complement Amon-Ra. And I think the decisions and obviously some of the pre-draft concerns about character and stuff like that maybe aren't necessarily right, but there's been enough stuff that you're kind of like, okay, what are we doing here, JMO? But I do want to bring this up because I've heard somebody talk about it more than once. And here comes Brandon saying I'm a JMO hater. But the reality of it, guys, is I've heard people talk about it and people were like, hey, when Jameson came in last year, he missed the games because of the ACL and then he came in, but JMO was balling. You guys were not watching the same game I was watching because the games that I was watching, he played in, let's just look at the game logs here. He played in 6 games last year and showed 9 targets for it. So 1.5 targets a game. Didn't even catch all of them. He caught 2 balls. No, he caught 1 ball for 41 yards. So 1 catch for 41 yards last year was balling. I must have not been watching the same game because it just did not look like that to me. The reality is his target share was about 4%. That's not good. I think obviously it's a small sample size and he's coming off an ACL, but it's just look, man, I cannot be in on JMO. And he said, Brandon says he was only in on 2 plays a game. Yeah, he ran 34 routes, 5.7 per game. So I don't know, man, 4% target share, 34 routes in those 6 games, 9 targets, man, 1 catch. It just, I think we need to see a lot more from Jameson Williams. And unfortunately, he screwed it up by gambling and not being able to start this season, because if he would have got a full off season, okay, now he comes in week 1. Now, we're starting to work him into the offense. Now we're feeling a lot better about Jameson Williams. But like War has just said, you got to come in mid-season now. As soon as the offense is already clicking, the offense is humming. We've tried some new stuff. Some stuff worked, some stuff didn't, but we've been figuring it out on the fly. And now all of a sudden, Jameson has to step in and be like, okay, now what can I do? Well, you haven't been here for 6 weeks, bro. We got to work you in slowly. It's just going to be different. Like, again. So it's going to be different. I think the reality is, guys, like JMO, there's more stuff that we can be excited about from college than he's shown at the NFL level. Like it's just, we haven't seen anything at the NFL level. And that's why I'm not going to like fully make a decision on Jameson Williams. I think, there's an argument that he doesn't belong in the saloon, but I think for the most part, there's been enough that we've seen where it's like, there's been enough question marks and red flags that I'm just like, okay, it's not looking good. This is feeling real Kadarius Toney-ish. Like, this is kind of what it feels like. and this is feeling real Josh Gordon-ish with less production. It just doesn't feel like he's going to be a superstar. And there were people and I don't want to call anybody out in the community, but there was a few podcasts that I listened to where they were like, this guy is the wide receiver one in the class. Like people were very, very high on Jameson Williams. And whether it's his fault, not his fault, his body's fault, his decision making off the field, whatever you want to blame it on, it hasn't come to fruition. And unfortunately, we have to wait until midseason to even get a chance to look at it again. So that's just where we're at. I think like I said, there's an argument he is in here a year early in the saloon, but I think he might be making some space. He's saying, save me a seat at the bar because I want to get a drink here next year when I truly belong inside these doors. And I don't know, man. That's how I feel about Jamel.
You do have a little bit extra piss and vinegar in you when you talk about J-Mo.
There's just a few guys, and this is the thing, man. Like we play Dynasty fantasy football, and there's guys that we're passionate about, guys we're not passionate about, and guys that we're not passionate about that we become passionate about because we don't like them. You know what I mean? So it's like that's kind of just the way that this thing falls. The thing that I am very, very honest about is that I'm always open to changing my opinion. Like if JMO comes in and he balls, hey man, I'm wrong. Like I was wrong. But we have to predict or do our best to predict in this game of Dynasty Fantasy Football. Like I said, we can't tell the future, but we have to make a decision now. And if I'm a betting man, all jokes aside, if I'm a betting man, I'm not gambling my bet on Jameson Williams. I'm not doing it. At least not at cost. You can re-roll this right now. I guarantee you in your league, somebody will pay you a first for him. We could re-roll this right now. You probably could have re-rolled it this offseason and just done it and got a guy in the first round of the 23 draft. So, if I can do that, I might do it. I probably would do it. I might just re-roll, stack the deck, try it again next year, go grab my, Xavier Worthy or whatever it's going to be. Might just re-roll it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we have now touched on our quarterbacks, our running backs, our wide receivers, but there's still two more guys that we saw at this saloon. And, I'm getting ready to leave, and there's a guy, and he's just kind of sitting in the corner by himself, and he's kind of talking to himself. I can tell he's been drinking, and really what he said is he was kind of partying, and he had just got married, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that he was celebrating. But at the end of the day, he felt like people didn't believe in him. They just didn't believe in him. They sent him on his way, and now he's kind of dealing with that on his own. But we had a little bit of a heart-to-heart. But I was talking with Darren Waller, man, and he's tight end for the New York Giants, tight end 7 on Underdog with an ADP of 96.1, and it's not good for Darren, man. The story of Darren Waller is fantastic. If you don't know the story, it's, we don't need to continue talking about it. We're not going to Malika Andrews this thing, but go look into the story of Darren Waller. But, career-wise, Darren's been good, man. Fantasy points per game from 2019 to 2021 was top 5 every year. In 2022, he was top 10 at 9. So last year, he kind of saw a dip. We saw a little bit of a dip. But the biggest thing is the finishes haven't been good for a couple of years now. And that's mainly stemmed to he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Darren Waller, when I look at the injuries starting in 2020, so these last 2 years, thumb sprain, knee sprain, low ankle sprain, IT band sprain, and then last year a hamstring strain that caused him to miss 7 games. And so I'm kind of looking at this and saying, all right, the injuries have tacked on a little bit more over the last 2 years. He is a little bit older. He's going to be 31 years old to start the season. But Darren Waller is going to a team where he probably is going to be the number 1 receiving option. Like, I don't think there's a more talented receiver on the field than him for the New York Giants. Now, the question is, how talented is the quarterback to get him the ball? I don't know. there's just a
Not
lot of
very.
question marks about Darren Waller. But the thing is when he's been healthy, he's been good. But have we already started to see what the future holds? And is that Darren Waller has aged on us and the good days are behind us, and now he's riding off into the sunset to spend the rest of his days at the Last Chance Saloon? Is that kind of where we're at with Darren Waller?
Yeah, I just seen a ball of hay roll by, and it made me think of Darren because he's heading out to a wasteland if it doesn't put it together this year. And really, if you stand back and think about it, if outside of opportunity of targets, do we really have any reason to think Darren Waller is going to do anything better? I mean, do we think he's going to be healthier playing in New York? Do you think he's going to be better receiving passes from Daniel Jones instead of Derek Carr? Like, and then let's address this. What if one of the guys that are on the roster, one of these new guys, or even Wandale, who we've kind of written off, what if they take a step now? They're garnering a greater share of targets from Daniel Trips a lot Jones, huh? What if we do that? And then now all of a sudden we're talking about an even less effective version of Darren Waller than we've seen in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all a possibility. I mean, last year we really saw a dip. Like he had 500 air yards last year and 28 receptions in 9 games. 28 receptions in 9 games, man. Like
It's not
he was
good.
not getting the football. And part of me is thinking, okay, well, they did add Devontae Adams, but they added Devontae Adams the year before and he was okay. I mean, he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
fantastic, but he was okay. And I'm just wondering, has Father Time caught Darren Waller? Because if he has, the thing is, if you can't get open in this league, you're done. If you can't get
Done.
open anymore, you're done. And if Waller can't get open, he's done. It doesn't matter how many opportunities come his way. And quite
No.
frankly, if you can't get open, there may not be lots of opportunities that come your way. And I think one thing that we all kind of are not looking at, because I know that there's a lot of people that think Darren Waller is a sleeper this year, which he possibly could be, but he's being drafted as tight end 7. So I don't know how much of a value that is for you. That's not really a sleeper to me. But I think the reality is we don't look at the fact that the Giants are 1 year removed from drafting Daniel Bellinger, who looked pretty solid. And if Daniel Bellinger eats a little bit into the receiving work, then Paris Campbell eats a little bit into the receiving work, and then Sterling Shepard and Wandale Robinson, and the list goes on, and we look at the the Matt Collins, or what? It's not Matt Collins, is it? Or it's Isaiah Hodgins. That tells you how good he is. But you look at all these guys, and they start kind of eating a little bit of passing work. How much of that pie can really go around? Because we know Daniel Jones isn't like throwing the ball 400 times a year. We know he's not doing that. So
Not very much pie, Andrew. Not very much pie at all.
it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like Darren Waller, it's like, I think Father Time got him. I think the body might have got him. Maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe Father Time and the body kind of played into each other. It's just, I see a pathway for Darren to be good, and that's why he's in this Last Chance Saloon, because there might be a chance that he's good this year. But it looks like it's a one-way street and there's traffic on both sides, man. It's a slim little road that he has to get through, and he's probably riding a bike. So it's a very small chance that Darren Waller is going to be a great asset for your dynasty fantasy football teams moving forward. Now in redraft, you can argue that you're only having him for 1 year. You might as well take the upside of Darren, sure. But we're talking dynasty, guys, and grass isn't always greener on the other side. And here at the Last Chance Saloon, there isn't any grass anyways. It's just dirt and tumbleweeds, baby. So uh, that's who I talked to. Like I said, he's still a little bit upset. I think he's still in there drinking, man. I know he's upset about being married, and then they traded him the next day. So Kelsey Plum's still out there in Las Vegas, but he's over there at the Last Chance Saloon. And Brandon says Kelsey said he ain't done. And yeah, she's legally obligated to say that these days. Now, there was somebody that you ran into, and you'll have to tell me how you met him because Darren was talking my ear off and I couldn't get away. But you ran into Irv Smith Jr., tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he's coming off as tight end 17. So tell me how you met Irv and why is he here at the saloon?
You know what? I don't have too much to say about Earth, to be honest. I will say this. I ran into the guy, went over there to sit down with him. I spoke to him, and the guy says, "Who's that guy you're with?" I said, "Oh, that's Andrew." Oh, Andrew, the one that they supported me all throughout the years. I failed him in Minnesota. See, that's what you did. That's what you did to Irv Smith, Andrew. You walked away. Yeah, yeah. So I sat and I spoke to him, and he said, "You know, I've had the athletic profile. I I had the opportunity, kinda. I did have two studs or one and a half studs ahead of me in targets, but I could never seem to put it all together." And then I looked at him. I said, "You know where cares that?" I lit a cigar. I leaned back and said, "Joe Burrow." That's what I said. And he said, "Man, if I can't," he said, to quote the a slogan for New York, "If I can't make it there, I can't make it anywhere," because Joe Burrow is a kingmaker. He's a kingmaker. It doesn't matter if you're the wide receiver one or wide receiver two, or if you're the tight end. Irv Smith, with that physical profile, teaming up with Joe Burrow, should produce his best season so far in the NFL. And with that, someone who knows Irv Smith personally, I'll pass the baton to you, good sir, because I think that if Irv doesn't succeed with Joe Burrow, he's cooked.
Yeah, here's the unfortunate thing. Irv's lack of availability created the opportunity for somebody else to come in and take his lunch. And that's exactly what happened. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell saw Irv Smith Jr. miss more games again for it felt like the 100th time. And they said, screw this. We're trading for TJ Hawkinson. And TJ never gave the job back because he never should. He never should give the job back to Irv Smith. And
No.
the reality of it is you go and you look at the career history for Irv Smith and 2020 and some of these other years where he was kind of splitting time and backing up a Kyle Rudolph, who obviously a very, very good tight end for the Minnesota Vikings for a long time. Kyle Rudolph probably will go in the Ring of Honor for the Minnesota Vikings. He's probably just one of those guys. But this isn't a Kyle Rudolph show. And Irv Smith, misses 3 games in 2022 with a groin strain, misses 2 more games that year with a back injury. Now you go into 2021 and he tears the meniscus and he misses 17 games the whole year. Come back 2022, thumb injury, and then a high ankle sprain where he misses 8 more games. Irv Smith Jr., second round pick out of Alabama, high expectations, never has been available to really get going in the Minnesota Vikings offense. And because of that, they said, hey, it's time for you to go. And he left. And like you said, lucky enough, he landed in one of the best situations he possibly could have landed in. There might not have been a better situation for him. This is probably the best. And I think it's just going to come down to what can you do. The problem is we can't really talk about what he's done production-wise at the NFL level because there really isn't any there. I mean, his best year is 2020, and it was good for 7.6 fantasy points per game, which was tight end 22. But you and I know tight end 22 ain't shit, and that's not hitting my starting lineup. I'm not putting that down there.
Barely
So,
rosterable.
yeah, it's barely rosterable. And so we haven't seen it from Irv. The potential is slowly fading away. That shimmer and that little bit of glitz and glam that Irv Smith Jr. has had because he's been young and he has the athletic profile is very, very slowly becoming very, for lack of a better comparison, it's starting to feel very Eric Ebron-esque.
Ooh.
That's really where it's starting to feel for Irv. But like you said, Joe fixes all things. And if Joe can fix anything, he can fix Joe, or he can fix Irv Smith. So we'll see what he does this year. It's still to be seen, but this is definitely a Last Chance Saloon for Irv Smith, because we did see it was a 1-year deal that he signed, right? It's a 1-year deal. So they're bringing him in to say, do it or don't. Doesn't
Last
matter.
chance. They're bringing in to say last chance.
Yeah. And Brandon says, Irvin Anthony Davis Smith. I didn't even know that's his full name, but if that is, yeah, that's about what coaches are calling him these days, because he needs to get it together.
Street cleats.
Street clothes. Okay, you're right. That's where it was. Okay, I joke went over my head. But at the end of the day, guys, that was our trip to the Last Chance Saloon. So let's leave this ghost town real quick, and then we'll close it out. Thank you guys for going to the Last Chance Saloon with us. Hopefully you enjoyed our journey. Hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of the storytelling, the fun, the everything that came along with that. I really enjoyed this show. How about you, War?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was fun.
Definitely. Now, I will say, before we get you guys out of here, I have to hit you with the promo. Go join the Discord, because if you join the Discord, you can enter to win a free signed NFL jersey mystery box. You just have to be in the Discord and be subscribed to the channel. You do those two things, you just click participate, and you will be we'll be announcing a winner here at the end of the month. So go do those two things for us. And before you hop out of this live stream, make sure to drop a like. If you're watching this on the replay, do the same thing for us. Leave a comment. Let us know who you ran into at the Last Chance Saloon. I want to know in the comments below. Final words from you, War.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. We will see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.